Good day, managers. My name is Irshad Bapu, and this is an instructional video on how to manage performance in the workplace. Firstly, let's start by defining exactly what performance management is. Performance management is the process that organizations use to align their resources, systems, and employees to focus on the key issues and business objectives that ensure sustainability. Well, that is what the management textbooks tell us. Bringing that into the working environment, the four key elements of this definition is that it is a process and that there must be alignment of resources focused on the key objectives of the business, which must ensure sustainable performance. It is important that a line manager understands the business strategy and is able to identify the business's key drivers and objectives, as this will inform performance management measures. However, this alignment of the business objectives to individual performance is beyond the ambit of this session, and I'll assume that you as managers understand this. Ultimately, it's about getting results, getting the best from your people, and helping them to achieve their potential.
So I think performance management, for me personally, but more importantly organizationally, is about ensuring that you get the best out of your people. It's about ensuring that, firstly, when you go into the hiring process, you are aware of people's strengths and you play to those strengths within the organization in terms of placing them in the right roles.
In telecommunications, the last mile is that last leg of connection linking the end user to the broader network. It is typically the bottleneck of the entire network and disproportionately expensive to set up, upgrade, or maintain. Similarly, in performance management, the line manager is that link between the organization and the employee. Through performance management, the line manager determines the organization's performance.
The key attributes of effective performance management are the following. Performance improvement of the individual. You need to spell out to employees what they should do to improve performance consistently during the year. Focus on improving knowledge and skills in order to raise their competency levels and close skills gaps when necessary.
So this is really a personal belief, but I think something that organizations really need to think very carefully about is how do you ensure that that individual has a sustainable contribution to your organization? And the best way to do that is to have very clear goals around that specific person. Those goals need to align very clearly with that person's career aspirations.
Manage performance throughout the year. The process must be consistent and continuous. For example, track progress regularly. Performance shortcomings should be resolved on an ongoing basis, and of course, good performance should be acknowledged.
I think it's important to manage performance throughout the year, both from a expectations as well as a satisfaction perspective. It's important to have these career discussions on an ongoing basis. And there are two key elements that it's mostly important. The first one is you don't want people to be surprised when you get to the formal performance review. Because very often you'll find employees think they're up here, managers think they're up here. There's no alignment in terms of those specific areas.
Have formal performance reviews or appraisals periodically. This could be monthly, quarterly, or annually. During these reviews, evaluate progress against agreed targets. Remember, the appraisals are more about the employee, and the employee should do most of the talking, and their input must be taken into account. It is also worth noting that remuneration should not be discussed at this stage, as it tends to distract from the more important performance management objective.
My view on regular performance engagement is one that determines how often you feel you need to come in contact with that individual. In our organization, typically we found that a monthly discussion at least is relevant to ensuring that there are no surprises when it comes to formal performance review. I've seen organizations try and do this quarterly, and it really depends on how often you communicate with your particular staff component. Because what you want is alignment again in terms of their view of performance versus your view of performance as a manager.
Performance management must have rewards, interventions, and of course, repercussions. Rewards could include a higher pay rise, a bonus, as well as other incentives. Sometimes even a simple pat on the back will do. Interventions could be training, coaching, and mentoring. Examples of repercussions could include warnings, demotions, or even dismissals. Ensure that these are done transparently, fairly, and consistently to give relevance and credibility to the process.
Remuneration per se should be outlined very clearly, well before performance reviews start. I think you should have a very clear idea of what the measurement criteria are, whether you're measuring somebody from a 1 to a 5, for example, 5 being they walk on water, 1 being they should be out the door. People need to understand what each of those components mean to them in terms of incentives. Okay. It's critically important that if someone gets a 5, for example, they need to understand how they're going to be incentivized based on that performance. And that's really one of the core incentives of driving the right behaviors inside the organization.
Your entire performance management process should be reviewed regularly. Encourage employees to give feedback which could be utilized to improve the process. Such improvements should be communicated to the employees to demonstrate that the input is taken seriously.
I think organizations need to, in an innovative organization, they constantly need to look at how they measure performance. It's dangerous for an organization to stay in a long-term performance management system that may not necessarily move with the times. You found, for example, lately, a lot of big organizations have moved away from the bell curve. And consequently, you're finding organizations are starting to drive incentivization or disincentivization of behaviors in different ways. The consequence of measuring people against each other tends to start driving into organizational behaviors that aren't necessarily cohesive with where the long-term strategy of the organization should be going.
Let us recap on what works and what doesn't work in performance management. Focus on the individual's performance and not on the personality. Give continuous feedback, not only at appraisal stage. Performance management should encompass assessment and development and should not be about assessment only. There should be clear outcomes which are related ultimately to the business plan and strategy as opposed to ambiguous business cycle linked outcomes. Use SMART objectives and not vague, subjective key performance areas. Performance management should have incentives and should not be seen to be exploitative. Review the process regularly, make it interactive, and remember, performance management is not a process that is cast in stone. I trust that this video will equip you with the tools to ensure an effective performance management system for your organization. Thank you.